Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now, of course, about the Terry McLaurin situation and not reporting to the mandatory minicamp. I'll get to that in a minute. Also, for anybody who wants to know what's going on in the Commanders minicamp as well as any other minicamp going on in the NFL, we have that all up on ESPN.com. Every reporter contributes to that. So check that out. Good one-stop shopping to find out not only what's happening in Washington, but everywhere else. So in a minute, I'll get to my my mini camp observations and just a couple notes for you. I will be doing a podcast after the Wednesday session as well as after the Thursday session. So tune in for that. And then for anybody who heard hopefully you heard the Anthony Armstrong interview if you're a club member, and the gold members, I hope, enjoyed their time to ask him questions. I played a couple snippets on the podcast the other day. Really fun guest, and I hope people enjoyed it. If you want to become a club member, go to the Empire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that, go from there. And finally, I've been doing this every so often, but please talk to your doctor. If you're a male, please talk to your doctor about getting tested, getting a PSA test for prostate cancer. Do me a favor and do that. So anyways, folks, let's get to the mini camp wrap up. And it starts with Terry McLaurin's absence. Of course, this was expected because it's exactly what he did the last time he was up for an extension, did not go to the OTAs, did not go to the mandatory minicamp. So no surprise there. You shouldn't be freaking out about that because this is part of what's going to take place. Is there some frustration? Yes, there seems to be, for sure. I think anytime you're in a negotiation, I don't think if you're on the other end that it's a fun process. So if it's not going to the where you want, it can be very frustrating. So does that mean it won't get done? No. So take a deep breath. And I think there's a long way to go in this process. I just think and I've always said this, it's going to be a tricky one because I don't know how many true comps there are for McLaurin. You can point to his age, say he's going to be 30. Is that, does that limit what you should pay him? Well, history says that receivers 30 and over, once you hit that point, you aren't as productive. However, most of those receivers have been playing in the NFL longer than McLaurin, which means they have more wear and tear on their legs. So you can look at DK Metcalf as one comp, as I told you, Joel Corey told me, but he's 2 years younger than McLaurin, but they are as productive. They were in the same draft class, but their production is very similar. You can look to Mike Evans, who was about 30 or so when he signed his extension, not as much, but he also been in the league for 10 years, highly productive, still a very good receiver. So, could he have gotten more? I don't know. But so where do you slot McLaurin? That's going to be the tricky thing to negotiate here. I think you can, again, with McLaurin, he certainly doesn't look like he's on the downside. He's coming off his best year, not in terms of catches or yards, but in terms of touchdowns and productivity. And he's got a quarterback to play with. So, I heard Craig Hoffman talking about this on his radio show earlier today about a lot of guys had their best years playing with Jaden Daniels. However, McLaurin made some big time catches. I know the throw against the Bengals was an unbelievable throw by Jaden, a great play. It was an equally hell of a catch by Terry McLaurin. So I think the two of them work really well together. Guy like McLaurin gives a guy like Jaden much more confidence to throw certain passes, knowing that in a tight situation, McLaurin can win. So it's not like he had 40 catches and then 80 and 13 touchdowns. He'd been productive with much worse quarterbacks, and he finally had a guy, and this was the result. So you can look at all this and clearly they need to get this done. And I think ultimately they will because these sides are really good together. Like Terry is really good in DC. He means so much to the community. He means a lot in this locker room. And conversely, this team needs him. They need him. They don't have someone if you want to go where you want to go this year, where you hope you can go, you need Terry McLaurin. So this is a business this is a marriage that needs to continue. And I think eventually that we'll see that. Anyways, as far as reaction goes, so I talked to a couple of players. It wasn't, believe it or not, it was not a big topic out here at all. There were a couple of questions asked to Dan Quinn about it in his presser, but with the players, it mostly wasn't a topic. And I asked a couple of guys because I just kind of after the sides hey, do you guys even talk about this? Does it even resonate? One guy didn't even know, one defensive player didn't even know that McLaurin wasn't even here. So that's how little that, in terms of like, in terms of if you're worried about a distraction or anything like that, it's not. So with the offensive guys, I talked to one offensive guys, like, of course they hope he gets paid. They want him to get paid. It's good for everybody if he gets paid. They also know what he means to the locker room. So, and they know what they know how, when he comes in here, they know what kind of shape and what kind of production they can expect. And that's one of the things that Dan Quinn talked about in his presser. I think Nikki asked him about, like, working his cohesion with the chemistry with the quarterbacks and with the receivers, whatever. And this is what Quinn had to say about that.
The good news is lots of rapport has been built. And so those are all the times and, hours and hours upon doing that. Hey, sometimes football and business, they intersect. And this is one of those times. Terry is a fantastic teammate and really puts in the work, and spent a lot of time with him already this offseason. So, but the business side of things, Adam and their crew and Terry and his group, they'll let them work through that. But in the meantime, lots of stuff to do, and we try to customize as much as we can, Nikki, who can do what, who's in rehab, who can do some things, who can do everything, who needs to see more during this time of year, and who do we need to see less. And so this is one of those times you're really able to customize the script and the work to do that.
Then a couple minutes later, I asked Quinn about, like, what are some of the things you've learned over the years as far as how to deal with these kind of situations. And this, what I liked is, and what he always does is keeps it, he's a coach. That's his end of it. He is a coach. That means maintaining a relationship with the player and making sure everything is good there. Not sipping in the negotiations, not focused on that, not worried about that. Worry about the relationship you have with the player, and that's something that I think can go very far. But this is what he had to say about that.
We all have, people that can help on that side. So I can have the relationship as the coach and the ball player and the man. And so, just keep cool head about it, and, keep communication up, which, Terry and I certainly do. So I think the main thing, like, expect the expected. Sometimes the business of football can get contentious and difficult, but it never has to be with the people that are inside the locker room and doing that. And so I've learned that, through the years. And
anyway, I don't expect Terry to report on Wednesday or Thursday. If he misses all 3 days, he can be fined up to $104,768. And, so there you go. But the key is, in training camp, get this taken care of and make sure it continues, because you don't want anything. One thing that people know too is, like, what the one player was saying, like, they know that McLaurin's going to report, like, he's whatever frustration he has with this, when he reports here, they know exactly that's not hit, that, like, he's not a guy that walks around angry. He's not a guy that walks around, frustrated like that. He's going to do his job. So whatever happens here, they know when he comes in. And first of all, when he comes in, probably be with a lot of money. So that's always a good thing. But they know that he's going to be in the right mental space, and he's going to be the same guy he always has. And one of the things Quinn talked about too, that he appreciates with McLaurin, and this is something that has been talked about here and by others as well, is just how much work he puts into the details of his game. So, for example, the point that Quinn made was, or the detail he talked about was, how he worked last year on catching tough passes, like balls at his feet, passes up high, things like that, where, you're off the jugs machine, where sometimes guys are just like, they just do, here, they do kind of reach over to their shoulder here, reach over the other way, a little bit down low, a little bit, but he was working on passes that were a little bit higher and definitely lower at his feet to make sure you get better at those. And I think, like, he's always added to his game every year, always worked on something on his game every year. That's the kind of guy, that's the guy they know that they're going to get whenever he comes in, which is why they're not sitting here freaking out about Terry McLaurin on June 10th. There you go. And neither should you. Not at this point. All right, a couple more things. Bobby Wagner, not here today. I believe he was attending somebody's graduation. Javon Kinlaw working off the side. Armstrong off the side. But yes, Marshawn Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil Jr. both attended the workout. Again, also expected, because in the last couple of years with Houston, with New Orleans, they did not go to the OTAs, but they did show up for the mandatory mini camps. Tunsil was not as active as Lattimore. Tunsil, when I was able to watch him, apparently did a couple reps in individual drills. When I watched him, he wasn't doing a whole lot, but I heard that he did do some there. Did not participate in the 11-on-11s. Whereas with Lattimore, and you can see, but I'll say this: like Tunsil's a big dude. And this is going to be could be a really good line with Tunsil. Then you have Coleman at left guard, Biotish, Cosme when he gets back, and then Josh Connolly at right tackle. Like this, and when you watch Connolly, like, and I'll talk about him a little bit more on Wednesday, just really athletic and good feet. But I'll get to more of that. But again, this could be a really fun line to watch develop, and especially if Cosme can get back early. Like you know, I keep saying mid-October. I don't know if it'll even be that long. I don't know yet. There's been no real time frame, and nor should they put a time frame on it at this point. We're in June. There's no reason to. I would just say he keeps hitting his markers, and they feel really good about where he's at and how he's trending. Anyways, with Lattimore, again, he did all sorts of work. In fact, they start off in the special teams drills. So he was doing it. He was participating in the first rotation he was a part of was in the tip drill. So you just going up and tipping the ball up, and somebody tips it, he goes up and catches it. Did all that, did all those drills. Then I watched him working over against Trey Amos, or just in some D-back drills, like some directional stuff. Then working with Amos and some one-on-ones, or I guess one-on-one, but it's really like the one D-back runs a route and the other one covers them. And when I was able to watch from a far field, you could see like he liked the way Amos played whatever route he ran, and how on the way back waited for him, dapped him up, and they talked on the way back. So I do think like that's a good thing to see. I think that Lattimore can definitely be a big help. We saw last year, even with St. Just, how he was very willing to share what he knew on the field. So I think now that he's here, I think that will be a benefit for a guy like Amos, that wherever Lattimore's game is at, he has played at a very high level in the past. So he definitely knows how to play the position. The question is, what level can he still play at for this team? Anyway, so I did watch him a lot though in the drills, and like he worked 7-on-7, he worked 11-on-11. And the first rep I saw him in the 7-on-7s was against receiver Chris Moore. Like how he drives on the ball. That's what he does. He's always in a position to drive on the ball. Sometimes he's overly aggressive doing so. That's when he gets in a little bit of trouble. But the way he plays the position, the crouch he's in a little bit, he's able to drive on it, and that's what he did here. Good on the next play against Moore. There was one time. This is where I say now again. It's June 10th, so deep breath. And we're just giving observations. We're not making statements about where a guy's game is at on June 10th when you're not in pads and all that. But it is, I think this could be looked at one of two ways, either from Lattimore or Luke McCaffrey, because McCaffrey crossed him up. And you saw just on a little crosser and cuts back in, and you see Lattimore just kind of basically pulling at McCaffrey because he's getting away from him, and he gets open over the middle. And it's just a really good route by McCaffrey. But it's also like if you haven't been working against guys in a while, and again, June 10th, then you're going to get crossed up by something like that, because that's just what happens. But it was a good route by McCaffrey. I've heard good things about him this spring. And so it'd be a big summer for him, and a big season for him. Not everybody progresses at the same rate. I'd say the same thing about him and Ben Sinnott. They need to develop, but not everybody. Just because some others did last year doesn't mean everybody's going to. Different rates for different folks. But a good route by him, and it just, so there you go. Saw Lattimore against Noah Brown one time. Same thing though. Like he was playing for Brown to run deep. Brown does a nice job cutting off his route, just breaking to the outside and just open on the outside. Whereas Lattimore, I think, was waiting for him to go deep. So there you go. And the good thing for Lattimore is he's out there for every one of those reps. Makes a good cut. That was a good cut by Brown on the out route. So that's where you go. I did see Amos going up against Noah Brown with a good jam up high, two-handed jam up high. Like that, was physical. Ball goes to the other side, but he did a good job covering Noah Brown. And on this play, I saw Debo reaching up high on an outside route for it. I don't know if he got his feet in bounds. I think he did, but anyways. So there you go. Also saw Bill Krosky Merritt. I've got to get used to saying Bill Krosky Merritt. And I think I've already told you, I like the ring of Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Just a lot of syllables. Bill Krosky Merritt, going to take some minute to get used to. That's his name. So, but anyways, good speed from him. And I told you last week, there was one day where he timed the fastest of the players, but you could see that speed today on an outside. Some ran to the outside, just down the sidelines, really nice, just showed the speed. And I saw one player, defensive player, taking an angle at him, and I don't know that he accurately judged or gauged that speed for sure. Anyways, deep breath, running backs in June, that's not where you make your mark. You make it with the pads on. Understand that. Don't, but I do think there's some things you can say, okay, I'm intrigued by him. I think you can also look at like a guy like Brian Robinson. We talked to him after practice. Um, I don't think you should write him off either, because I do think that if this line is better, then he can be an effective back for them. But I am intrigued to see what Krosky Merritt offers them for sure. So with the offensive line, saw Andrew Wiley working some at left tackle. It's just because with Tunsil not in these 11-on-11 drills, you need someone else to go in there at times. Connolly at right tackle, and again, Coleman at left guard. That's where he's primarily been before free agency. The thing and listen, that's not a surprise either. Like Connolly's a right tackle. Like they feel like he's really athletic. That's where he belongs. And so like that's where he's going to be. So he's going to be the starter there. Like I know they have to have the competition between he and Wiley, but Connolly's going to be really good. So, and then you had Allegretti working at right tackle as well. So McCaffrey, by the way, made a nice little touchdown catch. It was a play where I happened to not be watching McCaffrey. I was watching, I think, probably Noah Brown and Lattimore, somebody on the other side. So I didn't see how he got open. I did hear some people kind of say, oh, right. So it must have been a good play. I didn't see it. I just saw the result. So I apologize for that. What you also see too, I think one of the things that I see with the quarterbacks in year two of this system is getting to those checkdowns at a really good pace. And I've said this before, but in these 7-on-7 situations, you don't see the quarterbacks tucking the ball and running. They're making decisions. They're getting rid of the ball. And you see like Mariota will buy a little bit of time at times in even 11-on-11, but by and large, you're going to get rid of it. And when you get basically when they're getting to the checkdowns at times, I saw it with Mariota to Jeremy McNichols. He gave him some room to run because it's boom, 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 get to the check down, go. So, and you saw Mariota making some plays from the pocket in the 11-on-11, but that's what he does. I liked one guy I want to pay attention to is Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I watched him for a couple reps. I watched him against Julian Good-Jones, who was working at tackle. Just liked the way that Jean-Baptiste got his hands into his chest and was able to drive him back on a pressure. Now, on the play, there's a good throw from Mariota to Ben Sinnott. Just a nice job for sure. And so there you go. And by the way, I saw one time where Tyler Owens broke up a play to Sinnott just because really good physical coverage or had good coverage all over him. But actually, I think Sinnott made the catch on the play, but just a good job with coverage with Owens. So he's going to be a guy to watch in the summer to see how does he develop when the pads are on, what does it look like when you get into games, because if he can come through in some sort of hybrid role where he can play back, he can play up, he can up on special teams, he can be a very valuable player for him if he develops into that role. But this is where we've talked about that. This is where the spring is good. It's experimental stuff. Where is a guy at in this particular role? Doesn't mean this is how they're going to see him during the season. It means it's what they want to see now to see if this is what it could look like during the season. All right, then I saw crosser to Zach Ertz wide open. One of the things that I like about this offense is it does create a lot of openings for players. Like that's a good thing. And I saw it on this play, but and I'd have to go back and watch play. I don't remember exactly what happened in the play, so apologize for the lack of details on that. But what it just kind of dawned on me, I remember seeing a stat like how often quarterbacks threw to a wide open receiver, and Jaden had one of the higher ones. But that's a good thing. Like that to me is a testimony to a couple things. One, a guy that he knows where to go with the ball, not just because they're open, because sometimes it's just about a rhythm. Like, are you getting off your progression, you're going through your progression at the right pace, because if you are, you can hit an open guy, but it also speaks to the offense and creating openings for guys. So I did watch a matchup one time between Will Harris and Zach Ertz. Will Harris likes to be physical, has no problems with that. And this particular matchup was very physical and prevented them from looking even at Ertz, did not get open against it. Ertz will get open at times. I think you can take more from Harris on that play than anything away from Ertz. Noah Brown did what Noah Brown does. I told you about the one play he had against Lattimore, but also he drew a flag in the end zone against Noah Igbenogany. That's what he does. He got them there were a lot of hidden yards from Noah Brown because of the penalties he draws down the field, because he can lob it up to him. You know that he can go up and get it. And that's what Jaden Daniels did on this play, throws it in the red zone. Was it a clear-cut foul? There was an official standing right there. He threw the flag. Therefore, it was a clear foul to him. But this is what Brown gives them, not just some catches, but the ability to draw some penalties. And there you go. So in the next play, you have a sprint rollout to Deebo Samuel. This is where, like, Deebo's got the size. One thing in these kind of sprint rollout situations, is he going to always be the best guy to go to? I don't know. Because on this one, you have Samuel still was right with him and basically deflects the ball away. I think Deebo right now, you like him on the slants where you can use that body and the quick stuff. Let's see how that develops. But it was also a good play by Sam still for sure. You had a slant to, this is one where is it called an offensive PI, and it looked like a pick play, but Jonathan Jones got caught up in traffic and they called for an offensive PI. Next play, touchdown. This is where I think this is, again, Jaden does a good job being patient, not forcing things, looks to the left, looks like they have a switch play going, some sort of rub play going on, because it looks like man coverage. Defense breaks off into zone. So Jaden has to look from that because you got nothing to that side, looks to the right, back to the middle. You got Deebo breaking the back of the end zone, up high, catch, touchdown. However, Ken Norton Jr., the linebackers coach, kept yelling out, he had 6 seconds. He had 6 seconds. I mean, he had all day to throw. I don't know if it was quite 6 seconds. Didn't feel like that long. But bottom line is, I will say, it was a right play by Jaden Daniels. And Jaden, as he was running off the field, you could still hear Norton. You could see the two of them kind of going at each other a little bit, not in a bad way, because in a competitive way, because that's Jaden Daniels. Like, that's what he likes to do. And Ken Norton, old linebacker, he's all those good old defensive guys. That's also what they do. So kind of a fun moment, but it was a good catch by Deebo, had to go up high for it, and a good job by Daniels, not knowing that the first look was dead. I also saw Tyler Owens broke up a pass to McCaffrey in the end zone. And then also on the last play of the practice, you had Carlin Vigors break up a pass to Jalen Lane. It was a good competitive play. So down the left sidelines, they threw the ball up to Jalen Lane. I think it was Mariota. And he goes up high. He looks like he's going to make this really good catch. He's got the ball up high, coming down with it. But Vigors, give him credit, stayed with the play, knocks the ball out. That's the last play of the game. But it was like right on the sidelines, you kind of watching. Is he going to hold on the ball? Is he not? Is he not? Is he going to get it? Is he not? And then Vigors got it knocked out. So good job by him. And again, he was an undrafted guy that they liked going into the draft as an undrafted guy, maybe with some potential for sure. So anyways, folks, that's it from Ashburn. I'll be back on Wednesday with another episode. Appreciate you tuning in. No Terry McLaurin tomorrow either. I'm not expecting that. So we don't have to go on and on about that. We can get back to just talking about what happened in the second mini camp practice. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.